Welcome to Live Large Universe, everybody. I have Luke and Brad here with me tonight, and we are going to live large tonight. You guys, I don't know if you ever found this. This is the song. I've never shared this with everybody, but go to YouTube, check out this song. It's a good time. But as you're coming in, let us know where you're watching from. I know it always takes a little bit of time for the interweb to put the message out. I see my first thumbs up. Who's it going to be? Who is the first one in the comments right now? Ian McNichol is here. Ian, I know you know the routine. Drop it in the comments. Let everybody know where you're watching from. I know where you're watching from. Way up north in Canada, Saskatchewan. He's up here watching right now. But as you guys are rolling in, come on in. Let us know where you're watching from. And how about the guests tonight? Let's find out where they're tuning in from. Luke, where are you sitting tonight?
I'm sitting in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Brad, how about you?
I am in New York on the East Coast.
Wow, we have John in the West Coast over here in Pacific time zone. Luke, you're in Central time zone over in Wisconsin. Brad, holy smokes, it's late over there. It's 10 o'clock at night over there in Eastern time zone in New York State. Proud of you guys for staying up late, sticking it out, and having this show. Let's go through this, guys. So, guys, I'm going to give you guys a little, my normal commercial stuff here a little bit. Let me pop some stuff up for you guys. If you can get in here right now as you're coming in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. But also, share the show out. Get the word out about these amazing guests and what they have going on tonight. And we're going to talk about outdoor equipment rentals. New York State is where they're based out of. It's an online service you can register for. You can rent some equipment. It'll ship right to your house. We're going to get to all that tonight, but pretty cool concept that Brad came up with, and these guys here are here to tell us all about it and how it happened. But if you share the show out tonight, you are going to be entered in to win these Fly Zone Pro snow goggles from Fly Racing Snow, one of our show sponsors, and tonight they're the ones sponsoring the show. So let's go ahead and drop that down, and don't forget, we also have the t-shirts, Live Large Universe t-shirts. We've got this one is Live Life to the Fullest, make the most of every day, make a difference to others, live large, people. When you buy these shirts, they help raise money for Avalanche safety and education. We're training Avalanche instructors. We're training people who are ambassadors for our sport, who can get out there and be involved in clubs and all kinds of amazing things. So we're going to go ahead and drop that down too. By the way, this shirt is the one I am wearing tonight. Guys, the Jeep Live Large shirt. Embrace the adventure. That's what it's all about. Luke, Brad, you guys don't like adventures, do you? That's not why you're in this business. You don't like adventures or anything, do you?
Not at all.
No, not at all.
Luke, you're a snowmobiler. Brad, you're a mountaineer, also known as a mountain climber. And it sounds like some adventure to me, so I think we're all on the same page. Wow, here we are, guys. Let me read some comments here. We've got Ian McNichol from Saskatchewan. We got Levi Varner from Linden, Washington. Kevin Henderson's here from Dillon, Montana. We got Kyle P. Franklin, who is from California, but currently in Costa Rica with his buddy Cameron Beck. Wow. Shout out to you guys down there. There's some friends of ours that watch the show. Kyle, he's probably, I'd say at this point, our number one fan. Like, he's on this show every single week. He buys, sells raffle tickets, shirts, all kinds of stuff. He's quite the supporter of all the programs that are going on. So we have Linda Hill-Batterton here as well. Linda, let everybody know in the comments where you're watching from, and share the show out, everybody. Let's make that happen. All right, let's get down to business. Wow, here we are. We've got Luke and Brad. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Finally.
Yeah, we've been trying to make this happen for a while, haven't we?
Yep.
Very good. Well, Luke, why don't we start out with just a little bit more about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and you know how long you've been sledding. You already told us about where you live, but a little bit more. Let's dive in a little deeper.
Yeah, so I've lived in Wisconsin my whole life, grown up here, and been snowmobiling since as far back as I can remember. Trail riding around with my parents, all the way up to now mountain riding, going out west a couple times a year. And that's kind of where I got hooked up with Brad, was when we started really getting into that, was making sure we had the right gear. And he was a really good source for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself too. It's not too often I get a guest. I think you might be the second or third guest ever from New York State. A lot of the content we have is focused on Western, riding and snowmobiling. You happen to be in, in New York State, but you're also a mountaineer. Is there many mountains to climb in New York State, or do you travel for that? Tell us a bit more about yourself.
A bit of both. So there's some good ice climbing up in the Adirondacks and the Catskills in New York, and then some really great climbing. It's alpine, even though it's not very high. Mount Washington and the Whites in New Hampshire.
I've been there.
That's where I kind of got started doing all this.
Yeah, I lived in New Hampshire for a little while, and I actually did travel up to is it Mount Washington, right? Is the tallest mountain on the East Coast out there and stuff too, but it's the White Mountains. Spent a lot of time up there. Did a little snowmobiling. I was there for 2 seasons. Snowmobiled up Pittsburgh, New Hampshire area, and checked it out. We actually got to go to the Winter X Games in Mount Snow, Vermont that year. Did you go that year in 2000?
No, it's not there.
Oh man, it was a good time. That was the year that Tucker Hibbert won his very first X Games. I think he was like 16 years old or something like that, and he was in the race with his dad racing the X Games for the first time ever, and he won it. And Edith and I were actually there on site to watch it live. It was a pretty cool experience. Fun facts. Awesome. So Luke, you and I, we first met, and kind of how you introduced me to Brad, but you and I first met. First, it was just over the interweb a little bit, right? Social media. I think we were following each other. You had watched a few of the shows, and then I don't remember exactly how many years ago, but ballpark around 4 or 5 years ago, I bet. You and I got to bump into each other at Heydays. You were just telling me before we kind of went live here. Your memory of that moment. So share with everybody. I think you said Luke Dobbs was involved in that time.
Yeah. So I was walking over to meet, just walking through this vendor area, and ran into you and Luke Dobbs at the same time, and got introduced to him. And my group actually went out to Electric Mountain that year with him to go ride.
Cool. Very cool.
Got a great chance to talk to you and kind of actually connect, and not just over the internet. So that was a really great time, and we did a short video that day too.
Yep. I was doing a little shout out. I think that was the year that I was going around asking everybody, like, give me your best safety tip, and I think you and all kinds of different other people at the event shared it out, and we got a lot of information out to everybody. It was awesome. But yeah, then this year here, we ended up bumping into each other again and at Heydays again, and we finally decided, like, we are finally going to make this happen because, we're going to do this broadcast. You got a cool story of what's going on. But let me think here quick. Brad, ice climbing. Tell me a little bit more about your experience with ice climbing and kind of your backcountry experience. Like, just talk to us about, like, have you been doing it your whole life? Is it something that you've done just in recent years, or how did you get involved in ice climbing?
Sure. For most of my life, I've been like a backpacker, hiker type of thing, and then I had a friend of mine. This is quite a few years back now that had done some big mountains. He actually summited Denali. And had plans for doing even bigger things. And he would train in the Whites and Mount Washington and doing mountaineering stuff up there with a guide and ice climbing. And one year he asked me, do you want to go? So that was my first intro into it. And then we went, kind of became an annual thing for a little while. And so that was kind of my intro to it. And now I love that as well. Last year, a couple of my friends and I, we did Mount Hood. So we were in Oregon last year. And we're planning Rainier for probably next year. So,
wow! When you're out in the neighborhood, I can if I'm in the right position, I can see Mount Rainier from my neighborhood. I'll call it. I won't say from my house because I can't.
Yep.
But on my way drive down the hill, I can see it a lot of times. So it's probably 80 miles from my house. But it's a monster out there, man. It's It sticks up literally about 3 times higher than everything else around it, and so it's just like this ominous mountain out there. The average mountain height around it is probably 5,000-6,000 feet of elevation, and Rainier's up there at like 14,400 feet plus. And it's quite a crazy mountain. I've personally never been out other than at the base of it, maybe doing a little hiking, but it's a big mountain. So good luck with that one when you tackle it. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go with a guide on that one. So.
Yeah, very good, very good. But if you're in the area, make sure you come say hi. We can maybe get
Absolutely,
together.
Yeah, well,
get together for your pre-run or your
date.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Very cool. So we got a couple of people in the audience here watching. I just want to call out. So we have, you guys maybe know, Sunshine from Michigan is here. So Sunshine Rose is here watching tonight live. That's a rarity. So I want to say hi to Sunshine. Thanks for watching. And Travis from up in Canada. Again, welcome back. We haven't seen you in a while. Appreciate you stopping in. All right, guys, let's dive into this a little bit. So Luke, you originally ran into Brad because you were a customer in need. So tell me a little bit about that experience that you had, Luke, when you first started going out backcountry riding out west. You were trying to make your first trips and everything. Just talk me through it. Like, you were I'm assuming at the time were first time ever out to the backcountry, or was this already a second, third time, or what?
Yeah, this is our first time out. We were going with another group trying to learn. And when we were going out, they're like, you need beacons and transceivers, you need all the Avalanche gear. And I'm like, well, I don't want to buy all this. I don't know if I'm going to like it. And I didn't want to, invest a bunch of money in equipment I didn't know I was going to maybe ever use again. And so I reached out, did some internet searching, found Brad, and we ordered just the basic stuff, shovel, beacon, probe, and took it out west.
Yeah.
Got out there, loved it. I've gone back every year since. And I think it's been like 10 or 12 years now that I've been working either customer with Brad or working with him.
Wow.
And it was great. I mean, we ordered it. It came to right to my house.
Yeah.
Took it out of the box, went out west, came back, threw it in the box, and sent it back.
That's amazing.
It really couldn't get much easier.
That's amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, when you and I and Brad here have been talking the last few days, getting ready for the show here, you shared with me that, it started out as like just a customer in need, right? And so you reached out, and after your first, second, third trip, you started to become more of this like, holy smokes, you were that guy that everybody's favorite customer, because like you were telling everybody how awesome the experience was. You were referring friends to the business and everything too, and you slowly started building a relationship with Brad. Tell us a little bit about that first few years and that initial part of the relationship you started building with Brad, and why you were so passionate about it. Like, what triggered you to be so passionate about this topic?
So the first couple of years we ordered, and Brad and I were talking on the phone about how this is great, that more people should know about it, because really there's no excuse not to have the right gear.
Yeah.
And this is that way to have it if you can't afford to buy everything or not sure you want to buy everything. And we went a couple of years is where I was just a customer, and then he came out to Heydays.
Yeah.
And we had never met in person.
We have to stop the show. I have to hear about Brad's first experience at Heydays. Because anybody who's not even in the snowmobile industry, they don't even know what Heydays is. And then they go to Heydays for the first time and they see it. And Brad, you gotta tell me, like, he probably told you about it and you were like, yeah, okay. But then you tell me, I did this just recently. I had two guys from Washington that had never been, and they were in my car, and we literally came around the corner and they saw it for the first time. What was your reaction when you drove up to Heydays for the first time?
Pretty much the same. I remember, Luke calling me and a couple of other guys and saying, "Yeah, you really should come out to Heydays. It's your customer base." And my reaction was, "What the heck is Heydays?"
Yeah, exactly.
And he kind of described it a bit. And I think that was that summer. I just said, "Okay, I'm coming." I flew out, rented a car, drove up there, and the first thing was trying to figure out where I could actually park. And this was still Friday afternoon. It was after all the SWAT people were in, and you still couldn't get up and down the street. So already I was kind of shocked, and I called Luke, and he came out and met me at the gate. Like you said, we'd never met in person before. And then I just remember he was walking us back to their swap spot from the front gate, and it took us like a half hour.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just seeing all of this stuff going on. And it was overwhelming. It was a lot bigger than somebody describes it, and then once you actually see it, see the amount of people and everything else, it's amazing. And that whole first weekend, I learned so much because, as we mentioned, I was not a snowmobile rider. I didn't know the difference between a mountain sled and a trail sled and all this other kind of stuff. And I asked a lot of questions and probably embarrassed myself a whole lot.
That's how we learn. That's how we learn.
But it was a huge learning experience. And the best part was Luke and the guys that I was there. Now I go, it's the same group of us every year. And luckily, meeting these strangers, we hit it off.
That's
we all
awesome.
became friends and got along really well. Otherwise, the whole experience probably, would have been a lot worse.
Yeah. Yeah, Heydays is quite the experience, and especially for someone who's never been there before. I always try to tell everybody it's like Disney World for snowmobilers. Like, and you think about like as I don't know if you guys have both been to Disney World or not, but like the first time I ever went to Disney World, it was like, you're just like, how huge is this thing? It just goes forever and ever and ever, right? So, all right, Luke. So, couple years went by, you went to Heydays, and the partnership continued to evolve. Tell me a little bit more about that. So.
Yeah, so what would happen is for Heydays, Brad would start sending stuff out, and I'd take the gear and box it up or have it ready to go out there. So we started the shipping back and forth a little bit. And then about 2.5 years ago, I started my own business and decided that, hey, I have my own facility now. Brad and I talked a little bit and decided Avalanche distribution would probably be a good thing to try out of Wisconsin to improve our turn time on equipment in and out and reliability of that shipping, since a lot of the customer base is here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of evolved from there. This will be their third winter distributing out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, on the surface, you wouldn't think Avalanche safety equipment, why would I sell it or rent it or distribute it in the Midwest? Like, that's on the surface, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure Brad was like, what the heck is going on? But what Luke knew is what I knew, because I don't know if Brad, if you knew this or not, but I'm originally from Minnesota, right next door to Wisconsin. And my first experience back in 2007 was very similar as Luke's. It's like the first time I went out west, it's like I didn't know anything. I didn't have anything. And so I needed stuff. And we would go out and we'd rent it at the local. We went to Cook City. And so we'd rent the beacons or the transceivers at, in Cook City at the local, rental place and stuff. And, we didn't have all the right gear for sure that first year or two. I embarrassed to say, and in hindsight was like, holy smokes. The second year I went out, we went to West Yellowstone riding, and it was a year where the guy that I was with, he was quote unquote the expert rider compared to me. I was brand new, and he goes like, oh yeah, we're not going to Cook City this year, we're going to West Yellowstone, and so it's not nearly as dangerous there, so we don't need all that Avalanche gear stuff, right? I believed him, and so we went and rode, and nobody died, so here I still am, and thank goodness. But it was kind of sketchy that first few years, not really knowing what to do and what to expect. But then Avalanche gear and bags and beacons, before you knew it, like that stuff added up. And I'm thinking like that first few years, and I'm Luke, same for you probably, right? Is that as a Midwest mountain rider, you probably, most people only go out once a year, maybe twice a year, for a week at a time or 4 or 5 days, 6-day weekend, whatever. And so you think about the money that's laid out for that equipment, an Avalanche bag, a beacon, a shovel probe. I mean, we were just talking through this before the show, and it's like, it's easily $1,500 to $2,500 depending on what equipment you buy, right? It's a huge outlay. And so for people from the Midwest who only are going to go out once, twice a year and not use it every weekend, like someone like myself who now lives out in the mountains, and I'd go broke renting it, but for someone who's in the Midwest, it's brilliant because it keeps them in the latest, greatest equipment. And here we are, right?
Yep.
So great.
Well, we've had guys. I have a friend of mine who rented from Brad, went out for one season. We went out west twice.
Yeah. He
didn't like snowmobiling, didn't like being in the mountains.
Yeah.
Didn't have that investment made in the gear, but still got to wear like you said, the latest and greatest stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Brad, let's talk a little bit more about the gear. I feel like the time is right now to talk about, like, if someone were to look and rent gear, I was actually pretty surprised how inexpensive it is to rent the stuff. So if I decided to get an airbag pack, a beacon, shovel, probe, just the basic setup that, most mountain riders would want to go out west, talk about some of the fees that are associated with that for like a week-long trip if I was going to go out to, say, Cook City for a week or something. So.
Yep. So for a week for a whole package, so if you did the entire thing, you needed an airbag, beacon, shovel, probe, and even a radio with shipping, provided it's like ground shipping or something like that. Depending on the models, $150 to $250 all in.
Wow.
For something that's probably a year old, 2 years old.
Yeah.
Like you said, the latest and greatest. We always keep everything fresh and in stock.
Yeah. When you're talking like 1/10 the expense of what it would cost me to like lay the money out for all of the stuff for myself. And, you think about it too, like over call it 10 years, you've quote unquote paid for that stuff, but by then the stuff is obsolete and outdated, needs replaced anyway,
Exactly.
right? So
yeah, and that's exactly kind of the way we almost price things, is kind of with a 5 to 10 year payback kind of in mind, to try to hit that spot in there somewhere.
yeah,
Where every 5 years you're probably going to buy new stuff anyway, because there's
exactly.
new stuff out.
Yeah.
So that way, even if you rent every year, it's going to be less money or the same at most, but definitely not going to be more.
That's awesome. So Brad, part of the fun of this story, that as I was getting to know you a little bit over the last few days, is how you stumbled into this business idea / concept, right? So take us back to that moment in time when you were getting ready for a trip and you needed a piece of equipment yourself, and what did you do?
Yep. Yeah, it was back 2011. I can't believe it was that long ago.
Wow.
I was planning a solo trip out to Montana, Wyoming to do some hiking and backpacking. And I think it's my mom and my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, were both like, you're crazy, you're going to die out there, or something like that. There's no cell phone reception or anything else. So I was doing a little bit of research, trying to figure out what my options are, and I came across personal locator beacons.
Yeah.
Which I call, push a button and wait for the helicopter. They're foolproof, but that's what they do. But they're $350, and I was trying to do this trip on a budget.
Yeah.
So I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to spend that kind of money for something that was probably just going to be in my pocket for a couple of weeks, and that was it. So the idea I had originally was, I'm going to buy it, bring it with me, and then when I get it home, I'm going to sell it on eBay, and I'll probably sell it for $250.
Yeah.
So it'll cost me $100 instead of $350, and I thought, with that I can deal with. And somehow when I got back, I don't even remember exactly why I had the idea, but I was like, maybe instead of listing it for sale on eBay, I'll see if somebody wants to rent it for $40 or $50. And if I can do that a couple times, then it costs me even less.
Yeah.
And it worked. I rented it a couple times. I bought another one, bought a couple more. The whole thing really kind of started on eBay until eBay caught on and eventually kicked all my listings off, saying you can't list rentals on eBay. And that's when I very quickly figured out how to launch a very basic website.
Gotcha.
So that I can take orders that way.
Yeah. Well, that's how all the best ideas come, is when we start breaking laws, right? Breaking rules and laws. It's like this. That's how I've become the smart as I am, is because all the stupid things I've done in my life, right? It's like, eBay didn't know I wasn't supposed to rent equipment there, but turns out that's a thing. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so now let's talk a little bit about, like, man, you carry like Avalanche safety equipment and gear, but even more than that, right? Too, like satellite communicator. Like, talk us through some of the equipment you have, and like some of the brands. I know you've shared with me that BCA is one of your key brands that you have for your Avalanche equipment, right?
Yep. So BCA is our Avalanche brand, and started with them from the very beginning. I mean, the first couple of Avalanche beacons I bought to rent, I bought at retail. I did a little bit of research. Sounded like BCA made really good stuff that people liked and trusted. So I bought, I think, five Avalanche beacons at retail to rent. That was the first thing. And then as things kind of took off, I finally was able to, they were kind of giving me a little bit of the runaround at the beginning, and then I stalked them at the snow show in Denver, and went up to their booth and started talking to all their salespeople, and came out of that with a dealer account with them instead. And now, like I said, that they're our main brand for Avalanche gear. They made great stuff. Been working with them for years. They're great people. Yeah. And then, in addition to that, the original those personal locator beacons, we still do those. Some marine safety beacons, EPIRBs, man overboard stuff for people sailing, and then satellite phones, in-reach satellite communicators. That's the main stuff. So it's backcountry safety, backcountry communication. Is the main.
How did you stumble across? I mean, being a quote unquote non-motorized, backcountry enthusiast yourself, how did you initially stumble across the concept of renting to motorized users? Was it intentional? Was it an accident? Like, how did that come to be? Purely
by accident and a complete surprise.
Yeah.
So my background was a bit of ice climbing, and so when you do a Mount Washington summit, there is an avalanche danger there. So at that time, the guy that we went with, he would be like me and my buddy and a guy. He had a couple extra, and he would, give us each shovel probe beacon, and we go through a half hour of a little bit of training where he'd show us how it works and everything else. So I kind of knew what the devices were, and really was that winter after the personal locator beacon and the trip, where I was trying to think of what else might somebody rent in a similar price point or whatever. And that's when I decided I'll try BCA, I'll try beacons. And even I was thinking about this earlier today, like when I was doing the research, I mean, BCA was founded by skiers. So especially like if you went on their website in 2011 and 12, it was very backcountry skiing focused.
Yeah.
So still snowmobiling never really crossed my mind. And it really was, I put the stuff out there on the website, might have still been on eBay at the time. And people started renting. And then as I had phone conversations or email conversations, I realized that it was more and more people that were snowmobiling that were from the Midwest. They were from Wisconsin, Minnesota, those states. And it kind of just, I had no idea that was a thing at all, or that it would be a big thing. And now it's 85% of my Avalanche rentals is
that's amazing.
Backcountry snowmobiling.
Yeah. Yeah. This was something that, again, we chatted a little bit on the pre-show too, was the idea that, and this is from my own experience, and I shared it, and I think you guys have kind of validated this with your perspective and experience as well, is that the motorized community versus the non-motorized community, when it comes to avalanche safety and education and having the equipment, having the training and all those things, the ski community has probably got twice as much or more history in all of that than the motorized community does. And we were joking a little bit about this, again, pre-show was, think about back in, the 80s, the 90s, when did mountain sleds first become capable enough to get us truly into avalanche terrain off of the trails, right? Like there's times you're obviously on a trail, you're in avalanche terrain, that's inevitable. But the first time that people started being able to get off trail to a point where they could go out in high mark and they were maybe finding themselves in avalanche terrain more so than before, it really was the mid to late 90s, if I remember right, yep. And into this, early 2000s. And so the history is just not there like it is in the backcountry ski community. And so for me, it's not surprising, knowing what I know, that motorized users are probably more in need of this service and this product than the ski community would, which maybe would have already had this and some more history with it and stuff. So. Mm-hmm. Very good, very good. Well, what else do we need to let everybody know? Is there anything else that Luke or Brad, that you guys want to make sure we share with the audience tonight?
Sure. I mean, right now Luke and I we're talking. We're gearing up. We should be getting our BCA order in here hopefully in the next month or two.
Yeah.
We buy a ton of stuff every year, so a bunch of brand new gear, including the BCA's new electric airbag.
Nice.
Which not only is it exciting because it's cool technology, but I think it's great from an avalanche safety perspective as well, because not only do you don't have to worry about filling a canister, but you can practice now. You can let that thing, you can set it off 5 times and then just recharge.
Yep.
And you can recharge it while you're out riding, so you don't have to have that thought in the back of your head of, I don't want to pull it unless I really need to, because then I'm done for the day and I may not even be able to get the canister refilled. Now you can just pull it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not, and then find out, I didn't really need to do it, but that's fine. And so that new technology, I think, is going to be great from a safety perspective. In addition to, it's great from a rental company perspective, because now I don't have to worry about cylinders.
Yeah, well, because when you're shipping, the thing too is, like, if you're shipping air cylinders versus, the fans, I mean, that's a big deal. And then also, if somebody now has it shipped to them and then they're flying out to a trip, flying with air cylinders too is a big deal. And so, it's kind of making things a lot more convenient now. So cool. Luke, how about you? Anything else you want to make sure that we let the audience know about tonight?
I just, there's no reason not to carry the right gear. I mean, for a minimal cost, you can have everything right to you.
Yeah.
And that's a huge convenience. You don't have to worry about, I got to go get there and I got to go pick it up, make sure I make it during hours, or, you're getting something off the shelf that has been rented, I don't know how many times, and, could be X number of years old. I mean, we don't even carry the Tracker 2s or 3s anymore.
Yeah.
It's all Tracker S's and Tracker 4s.
Yep. So,
keeping up on the latest, the latest and greatest technology again, really, it's a good thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so we dropped the website link in the show notes so people can go in here after the show or whatever and click on it too. But why don't you verbally just share everybody with where they can find you guys, right? Like your website, any social media channels you have, anything else? Brad, why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah, it's oerentals.com or Facebook/Outdoor Equipment Rentals. Phone numbers on there as well. And I always tell, especially on Avalanche season, you get a lot of big orders. So, you got 10 guys going on, everybody needs gear. Call me on that one, because we'll do group discounts and reduce shipping and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can also just book online.
Yeah.
But and feel free to reach out with any questions. especially, and if I can't answer the question because I don't have as much of a sledding background, that's why Luke is great, because he knows all this stuff, and I'll just pass it right along to him if I have to. So, and he'll answer your questions. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And the reason I was so excited to bring this on is that, as everybody follows my show, I'm a big, ambassador for Avalanche safety and education. This is a big part of what I do. But the concept of being able to rent the equipment, have it shipped directly to you for your trip, or even to your destination, I think we talked about that too. It's like, if I'm going to Tahoe or Cook City or West Yellowstone or wherever I'm going to, I go to Wyoming, you guys can ship it. Just make sure they give you get enough notice to be able to ship it to that destination, depending on how remote it is, right?
Yeah, especially the remote destinations. Just keep in mind that roads get closed, and build in a couple extra days just in case UPS can't get there.
Yeah,
and let the people know that you're shipping it early to their location, so if somebody doesn't get there, who's already there ahead of you, and reject the shipment.
Yeah, they're like, what the heck's going on? So yeah, good communication all the way around. So great. Well, go ahead.
The other thing is, if you're local to, I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin, just south of Green Bay.
Yeah.
If you're local and you come and pick up your gear, you can actually pick it up here in Wisconsin at my business, and I'll go through everything, work with you over any questions you have about the gear before you leave my place.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more with that. That actually was a question in the chat I had forgotten about. But yeah, in the chat, people asked, like, what kind of training, quote unquote, training comes with the equipment? Like, if I'm going to rent an airbag, are you going to be able to demonstrate it, for me to be able to lead, or is there instructions that come with the stuff, or how does that work?
Well, so if you come perspective, sorry, I think Luke and I are talking over each other, right? I'll pass it off to you in a second, Luke. So yeah, we include with all the airbags full instructions, and the actual instruction manual that comes with it. Website has links to videos and DCA training stuff. There's cylinder refill kits that go out with every single one of them, and sheets on how to reset a cylinder and how to fold a bag and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And then, like Luke said, if you're local in Wisconsin and you really have questions or a demo, he'll be hands-on with you and show you how to use everything. It doesn't replace taking an Avalanche course.
Of course.
That is one thing we want to emphasize. Take an Avalanche course also.
Yeah.
And then you can rent the gear. So it's still important to do that, not just think, I've got the gear, I don't have to worry about how to use it. So.
Amen. Luke, you wanted to add to that, I bet.
No, not at all. He summed it up perfectly.
Yeah. Well, let me stack onto it then too, because this is my pitch too. Is Avalanche education is critical. Everybody is, and I think Luke, you kind of jokingly but somewhat seriously have said that, like, some people who've come to you have so little experience and have no idea what they're getting into, that when they're renting to you, in some cases you borderline of like talk them out of going on a trip because they're just not ready for it yet, depending on the destination they're going and where they're going to. But tell us a bit more about maybe an experience you had with that, Luke.
Yeah, I've had a couple customers stop in, pick up their gear, and they'll go, hey, we're going out to wherever, Cook City.
Yeah.
And none of us have any experience in the mountains. Oh, can you teach me how to use all of this right now?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? And I will respond honestly, I don't think you should go. Or I think you should get a guide.
Yeah, get a
you
guide.
Need something more than just renting the gear and hoping nothing happens.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. You don't know what you don't know, but it's a dangerous thing that could result in, life-changing events. So, but I still go through the gear with everyone, make sure they all understand how to use it, show them how to connect everything. We've done beacon searches in my shop.
Yeah.
For the transceivers, so people can understand how they work.
Awesome.
Not the ideal solution, but better something than nothing.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I think we've covered the bases tonight on this, and I want to say thank you so much, Luke and Brad, for joining me tonight. Any final words before we wrap it up?
Just be safe. That's the biggest thing, is be smart and be safe this winter.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you all. God bless you. Live large. And don't forget to share the show out. You get in to win that amazing pair of goggles. We'll talk to you guys later. You too, hang on. I'll be right back.